The line about Andre the Giant, this is some funny trivia. I played this song on my radio show at college, and you could play like indecent material after 10 at a late night show, but you couldn't play obscene material. And I got in trouble for that line about Andre the Giant. One of the station managers called, was like, you cannot play this. This is going to get us in trouble with the FCC. Yo, it's Hatchet Chat
with Lars and Snax.
Your Juggalo homies talking hatchet tracks.
There's hatchet beats
and hatchet raps. The whole catalog's packed
full of classic gems, and we talk about them all
on Hatchet Chat.
Whoop, whoop.
Juggalos, you know what's up. Not forgotten, always fresh. You know I have an affinity for this one. Forgotten Freshness 3 is my favorite, and because it has some really wicked, dope horrorcore songs and a lot of fun stuff like the family song at the end, the Vanilla Ice feature. Like, it's just like a record that's like, whoa. It's like stuff that it has the energy of Malenko, but it also has like the eclecticness of the Wraith, and that's because it's like kind of a mid-era thing. And they're also nostalgic on this record.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. What is it? Snax, tell me your feelings about it, and then we'll talk about the release date and all that.
100%. So I like, pretty much all the Forgotten Freshnesses, and, the newest one, Volume 6, I thought was really dope. I do think that this is my favorite, and that might be because of nostalgia. It's actually one of the first ICP albums I came across in a store. Yeah, I just love this album, and I totally agree. Because, they were further along in their career than when they dropped 1 and 2, that nostalgia factor added in with the fact that it is kind of an unreleased compilation, a rarities compilation and stuff, kind of just makes it, feel very special. And it's just such a solid compilation. I love this album.
So you got the album there. Does it have liner notes? Because I know Forgotten Freshness has dope liner notes.
Yes, sir. So just like the previous ones, they got the liner notes. The original Forgotten Freshness Volume 1, did have some descriptions, but then with the re-release Volume 1 and 2 is when they really started going all out with the origins of the songs, and this one continued that tradition. So a lot of the information that we have for this episode is going to be directly from here as far as where these songs came from. And, they got some great pictures in here, too, from past eras and right up until this era, I believe. Such a dope booklet.
Look at that. They got Jumpsteady with Violent J. That was one of his characters, like the cop character from
I think he,
Big Man Hustlers.
Yeah, that's right. I think he played a cop in the background in addition to a couple of other roles.
That's what's up. Well, this is the third installment, and it features rarities, unreleased songs, collabs. It was dropped on December 18th, 2001, a week before Christmas, for all the juggalos to get excited about, Christmas or whatever. And it was number 10 on the top independent charts, which is pretty good. It was kind of holding people over between Jekyll Brothers and the Wraith. I mean, it dropped after Dark Lotus and before the second Dark Lotus, right? Before the re-release?
Yeah, this is only a couple of months. So I think Dark Lotus was in the late summer of 2001, and then this dropped in the winter of 2001. So this is right in that era.
The intro has like an ad for the Ringmaster show in Detroit, and it's kind of cool because they're already starting to reference their origin. And we'll talk about this a lot. Like, this becomes a common theme of theirs. Like, it's cool to be like, people who didn't hear that ad, it's like a cool mashup. It even has that Deal With Your Own Creation, which is from Psychopathic from Carnival Carnage, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's like an interesting overlay. So what else about that song?
Yeah, so it's a great way to open it up again, hitting home that nostalgia. And the liner notes explain how, even though this commercial is promoting like the Ringmaster tour, ICP weren't really, doing full-blown tours, but they would circuit between Detroit, Flint, and Toledo. And, according to the liner notes, this was actually promoting one of those small regional tours that they did. And that goes into an original track that was made for this compilation, Cartoon Nightmares, produced by Mike P.
Now, this song is interesting. I mean, it's one of the first times Jay talks about how he's smoking weed now, right?
Right,
he has that
that's
line.
Right.
And he says he told Megaran and I he started smoking weed with Blaze around that time. What's the backmasked line?
So, dude, I know why they took it out, man, because basically the full line says, I hijack planes and crash them into record label towers.
Okay. They probably, they were just see how far they could go.
Yeah, but if they thought better of it, I think probably
flipped
when
it.
the craziness and the horror set in, because another song in the liner notes talks a little bit about 9/11. So I think they just thought, yeah, you know what? No, let's not go that far.
Let's let Snax and Lars decipher it 20 years later. I was thinking that this sounds a lot like Zug Izland, but you were talking about how Mike P worked on this record, and he was working with Zug Izland before Dark Lotus, so it's kind of like that's why it was like Mike P's style. But it's a very like this could be a Zug Izland song for sure. You know what I mean?
Totally, yeah. It's definitely got that rock style, that those Mike P, production stylings. And yes, like in the liner notes, again, referencing those, it actually mentions that Mike P did work on Zug Izland before working on Tales from the Lotus Pod, because he did quite a bit of production for that album.
Where they say like success is preparation and being in the right place. You know what I mean? Like that dude was ready and they needed someone. Mike Clark wasn't available and his style was tight. Rap metal was huge. It's interesting how like it's so weird. I think one of the best rhymes is science fiction brain incision. That's tight.
Totally.
And then walk like an Egyptian. I'm like, what the heck? What? Like some of those lines, I'm like, that's an old reference that my generation kind of didn't even know. It's like,
yeah, that's like Cher or something, isn't it?
I think it's the Bangles.
Okay, the Bengals, word. Okay, yeah.
The line about Andre the Giant, this is some funny trivia. I played this song on my radio show at college, and you could play like indecent material after 10. I had a late night show, but you couldn't play obscene material. And I got in trouble for that line about Andre the Giant. One of the station managers called, was like, you cannot play this. This is going to get us in trouble with the FCC. Allegedly, that happened. So I was like, oh, that's the line between saying the F word and like being obscene about graphic.
I could definitely see that line crossing over into obscene territory.
That's not for college radio. God,
Right.
imagine, yeah. I was I had a lot of chutzpah playing that.
Totally. That's dope that you did play it though. It's such a great song, man.
And then what else? There's an arm in my trunk. It reminds me of how on, what's that like long track that has who took the chicken up the plate and put it in the fridge? It's like just weird choruses stacked on choruses.
Yeah,
right?
the Real Underground Baby from Hell's
Yeah.
Pit.
It's like that. It's like, let's put as many weird choruses as we can. He does
Totally.
the Pearl Jam like interpolation thing.
Absolutely. It really jumps around to where it's like not just straight up like verses. They're just kind of going from, topic to topic, different melodies. It's very kind of sporadic, but it's so dope. And it speaks to the depth of ICP's catalog, because from these Forgotten Freshness, albums, you actually have songs that become Juggalo classics, you know what I mean? Like the rarities and B-side collection albums, again, they become classics. And I just think that is, I don't know how many bands could say that.
It's like also we find another example of a literary technique that Jay is very good at called enjambment. And so that's when the poet enjams the line, turns the line so that a logical phrase is interrupted. I'm talking about me and Billy Bill, we put an arm in Shaggy's trunk. He would have never known it, but it stunk so bad. That's when you make the line go over and you make the listener think that the sentence is over, but you have more to say. So that's an example of enjambment.
Dude,
let me give you
I didn't know that had like a name. I'm familiar with the technique. That's awesome.
Here's a line, an example of Shakespearean enjambment from Romeo and Juliet. When he shall die, take him and cut him out in little stairs, and he will make the face of heaven so fine that all the world will be in love with night and pay no worship to the garish sun. Lines 2 and 5 have a certain cadence, but lines 1, 3, and 4, it surprises your ear.
Very cool.
That's what's up. So Ned, Posse on Vernor is such a freaking classic. This was
Yes.
from Bite Out a Rhyme, a rock tribute to rap, which had the Dynamite's Boys in the Hood cover. Lords of Brooklyn had a song on it. Adam from Lords of Brooklyn actually worked on some of the Robot Kills demos, which is kind of random. And Jerky Boys have an outro song on it, the BAM track from Jerky Boys 3. But also, Manless Self-Indulgence do Bring the Pain.
Yeah.
ICP would tour with them. Bloodhound Gang cover Run DMC. And this was always really interesting compilation because I think it exposed a lot of people to like old school rap.
For sure.
I love this cover, but they couldn't. When you do a cover, you can't change the words. So on the like legally, right? ICP doesn't really care, but like on a mass-produced rock rap compilation, they had to keep Posse on Broadway. But here they changed it back. What's good with that, Snax?
Yeah, the liner notes talks about that as well. Super dope cover, like you said, of a Sir Mix-a-Lot track, Posse on Broadway. And on the version of Take a Bite at a Rhyme, a rock tribute to rap, the chorus does say my posse's on Broadway, but for this version, the chorus it says my posse's on Vernor, reflecting, Detroit's Vernor Avenue that ICP, of course, were familiar with in their hometown. And there's also a scratch section on the Take a Bite at a Rhyme version that isn't on this version. That's the only other notable difference. But both versions are dope. But the shout out to Detroit is I do prefer this version.
In the Nardwuar interview, Nardwuar flipped Shaggy's wig by pulling out a Sir Mix-a-Lot record, and it's like obvious ICP were Sir Mix-a-Lot fans before Baby Got Back. You know what I mean? Or like
right.
Down with Seattle's favorite rapper, West Coast rapper.
That's right. Yeah, they've always said in interviews they get mad when people call Sir Mix-a-Lot a one-hit wonder because to them he wasn't, and he wasn't. He had so many rap classics. He's a legend. Fly
Away. So this is our first taste of Zug Izland, track 4. So 2 things. It reminds me of Miracles because they're just listing like magical things. So when Miracles came out, I'm like, this is like Fly Away, but everyone's like, they don't understand physics. They don't understand magnets. And all the jugglers were like, wait, we've heard this before. Poetic song. Tell us a little bit about Snax, and I want to drop some knowledge on one of the lyrics.
Totally. Yeah, man. I love this song. It's super dope, poetic. I definitely can see, that Miracles, similarity. And it also kind of reminds me of Joke Your Mind as well, with some of that fantasy type imagery. Beautiful song. One of the more notable things mentioned in the liner notes about this song is that, it mentions that this is really a Zug Izland song featuring ICP, not the other way around. And the song was going to make its way onto Zug Izland's upcoming album at the time, which in the liner notes is referred to as 627 West End. But, of course, many juggalos know the first Zug Izland album ended up being called Cracked Tiles. But love this song. It's so good.
Jay has a couplet. Glide through cities of brick and stone. Come on, broken arrows of ancient Rome. Now, that line is poetic because Rome's first, limitation and expansion was that they had a bias against archers because that was seen as like a Western Mediterranean Greek cultural thing that they didn't want to assimilate. It felt like it was debasing the art of war. Like with them, they would fight hand and foot, and their armies were kind of like the phalanx. You'd go through with the armor and the swords, and like you wouldn't use archers because that seemed kind of whack. But eventually, they adopted them, and though they never adopted the crossbows, the Roman arrow became a very interesting sign of their empire. But it took them a while to finally say, look, the reason why we're losing ground in some of these places is because there's a limitation to what we could do. So the broken arrows of Rome is interesting because it's like, not only is it the decay of the might of one of the first Western imperial civilizations, but also an acknowledgement that they had to acquiesce to the cultures of what was popular and what was working. And if I may get metaphorical, that might be like ICP being like, all right, we'll do rap metal songs, it's fine. And then people look through the wreckage of it and they're like, oh, look at this moment when like Rome realized that they had to give in to this sort of technology that was keeping them from expanding, that they had a bias against. So that's what's up. I don't think it's an intentional metaphor, but I think learning about the history of Roman archery teaches us a little bit about Violent J's prescient line, master of enjambment, master of the history of imperial conquest and the death of the Roman expansion. And so that's what's up.
Dope, man. That's that lit hot knowledge. That's why I miss you on these episodes, brother. Tight.
Tangents, bro. Track 5, it. Now, this was based on the song from Dark Lotus's album, and we talked about this. But the chorus is the same, but it's just like Jay went off. Talk about this. Like, was this demo first? I'm trying to figure out, like, Yeah, did he just say, "Hey, let me write more. I'm not done"?
Yeah, great question. You know, the liner notes mention that this is one of two songs that resulted from Violent J just craving going to the studio. He was bored. He hit up Mike Clark. They went to the studio and they took off the lyrics, the raps from the Dark Lotus song, something / cripple and RAPE me.
Yeah.
And just, you know, Jay did his verses, like he said. He's just talking about all kinds of crazy stuff. And, you know, it's a good question. If the liner notes are accurate, then the Dark Lotus song came first.
That's what's up. Run is interesting because it has a really cool like Irish flute intro. Yeah, I don't know. Do you like Run? Because I think that's like, I was like, yeah, I'm not feeling this.
I do like this song. It, you know, like apparently it was a song that ICP kind of did to feel out Mike P as a producer, just working with him, and they didn't really know where to put it. Interestingly enough, it was released with one of the Pendulum comics, issue 11, which also came out in the same month of the same year. So they didn't really know where to put it, and then I guess they kind of, you know, found a spot for it with both this compilation and that release. But I do think it's a fun song. You know, the fight lyrics are, I think, kind of indicative of that era. But you know, it's a pretty cool song.
The flute melody reminds me of Lucy by Aesop Rock.
Word. Okay. Yes.
Check it out. I don't know if it's intentionally like that, but it's like a similar sort of melody.
Totally.
Track 7. So we know that there's a whole thing with Eminem. It's funny how when you Google any of like ICP from this era, or go on YouTube, everything that is recommended is like the history of Eminem's top 10 beefs. Like it's always,
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like this era is a footnote to Eminem's, like, I don't know, legacy. But this is another diss about Eminem. I'll let you talk about Snax. I don't have much to say about this one.
This song was originally released when the beef was, you know, at its highest point. The beef has thankfully fizzled out now between the two, you know, Detroit icons. Hopefully, maybe there'll be some sort of working together. You know, of course, Eminem shouted ICP out what could be perceived as a couple of shout outs on some of his newer stuff. So it's all good now, but at a time, you know, it wasn't all good. And this is, you know, a very direct diss song released towards Eminem. It was originally released for download on the ICP website, and it was also released with the Pendulum comic issue number 6. What is also interesting about this song is that the beat, it definitely is a reference to No Vaseline by Ice Cube, which is of course one of the most famous diss songs of all time by Ice Cube towards NWA. And that beat samples Daz by a band called Brick. And this beat also samples Daz by Brick. But it doesn't seem to be just like the instrumental taken. It seems to be a remade, like a different like beat, because it also samples Brick's Duzik. And, you know, some deep Juggalo trivia. This version of this beat, whoever produced it, I'm not sure if it was Mikey Clark or wherever, but it existed years before this. It was the beat for the last song on the Golden Goldies album. And even the chorus of that song is the same, but instead of dissing Eminem, it's dissing one of the members of Golden Goldies, Golden Spud. They also reference Forgot About Dre in the lyrics of the intro, and they sample Impeach the President by the Honey Drippers and Prelude by NWA in that intro before the actual song kicks off.
Holler. That's great analysis. The song with 3-6 Mafia. So the Mafia 6 would later be a collab with some of the 3-6 Mafia people in ICP. We opened for them at the Gathering, and that was tight.
Word. That's so fresh.
I'd heard Sippin' on Some Scissor, and I bought this album because I was like, what? ICP's on this too? And I thought it was so tight because it was like they're always trying to put Twiztid on everything they did. Right. Twiztid sound great on this. 3-6 Mafia had kind of had this beef with Bone Thugs and Harmony about who was more evil, right? So they were kind of like in the horrorcore world. This song is just an example of how like other underground sets from different places were respecting what ICP was doing. There's an example of Onomatopoeia, where Jay's like, did you hear that? This is me. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Great example of onomatopoeia we use in hip-hop workshops and classrooms everywhere. 100%. And both, like, Madrox's verse and Jay's verse talk about using chainsaws in unexpected ways. Like, Madrox talks about doing drive-bys with chainsaws, and Jay says we stab people with chainsaws. But like when you think about chainsaws, they're not used really to stab. So they're both using circumlocution to use an unexpected autonomy with their lyrical skills, how these sort of weapons can be reinforced to show their flavor. But it's interesting how they both use the same term, and I wonder who wrote their verse first. You hear Jamie's first, but I don't know. I don't know. Do you ever think about that? The weird, but both reference chainsaws weirdly.
I actually never noticed that, and again, learning about these actual techniques, putting names to the techniques, and super great song, super cool banger. It's dope that 3-6 hit up ICP. It talks about that in the booklet, and of course, ICP were ecstatic to do it. And it appeared on 3-6's album When the Smoke Clears, 66, 61, and made it to this.
Great record.
Such a banger. Also interesting from the booklet, it mentions how maybe someday there would be a supergroup between ICP and 3-6 Mafia.
Wow.
And like you mentioned, many years later, we got the Killjoy Club, which is, several members from 3-6 with ICP.
It's interesting. Later, Gangsta Boo would do a song with Yellow Wolf and Eminem on Radioactive, which was on Yellow Wolf's record, and she's the one doing the hook on this. She would leave 3-6 Mafia, but it's funny how like right after this song, the Eminem diss, there's this connection there.
Totally. One of the
Underground,
dopest female
bro.
rappers ever, man. Gangsta Boo kills it.
Yeah, she's dope. Take It. Okay, so this is this about God or something? Like, what do you think?
Apparently this song was originally, just Violent J kind of imagining what it would be like, come Judgment Day, where you had to witness a friend, going to hell, being tormented by Satan, and there was nothing you could do to help them as much as you wanted to. You would just be like, sorry, I can't, help you. You're just going to have to take it, and that's what this song is about. And, as you just alluded to, like, it does have a very big spiritual theme, and this was pre-Wraith, before the Unveiling. But one of those clues, to where hindsight is always 20/20. It's almost hard to imagine being so surprised by the Unveiling because of the references to God. And, this is one of them, especially when it talks about the booklet, like the original meaning of the song. It would later make its way onto WCW Mayhem the Music, because ICP gave it to Vampiro to use as his entrance theme, which is also very noteworthy. And this came out before Forgotten Freshness Volume 3, so I thought that was cool. But what do you think about this song, dude?
I think that, well, something interesting is that Jay's purposeful misuse of the subjunctive, right? Because it's supposed to be like, if it were up to me, I would never dare you. If it were up to me, I would, but he says was. And,
right.
So that's, but like no one uses the subjunctive properly. Like, Joan Osborne's song, What If God Was One of Us? It should be What If God Were One of Us? That's what's up. Let's go to Superstar. First of all, the chorus of this, the song Cotton Candy and Popsicles from the Wraith, right?
Yes, sir.
Where the woman goes, thank you, Shaggy Sweetness. That's the same melody of the chorus. Da 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 da. I wonder if that's a reference to this. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do now. I never noticed it, but now that you mention it, that's
like,
pretty
I'm so
interesting.
famous, da 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 da. That's the melody. I just could be a coincidence, but I was like, wait, I've heard that melody.
Yeah, man, that's super cool. It's always wild how that can happen in music, and like, because I didn't notice it as a fan. And another example of that, like, how something can kind of just work its way in. Probably just in the artist's psyche. Won't You Be My Prom Queen and Walk Into the Darkness. I had never ever noticed that until a commenter on our Hell's Pit episode had done it. And I'm sure all us musicians do that, but I never noticed that connection. That's dope. Good catch.
It's just a moment.
Real quick, this is the second song similar to It, where it uses a Dark Lotus beat from a spontaneous studio session with Jay and Mikey Clark, and just kind of talks. It's Jay imagining what it would be like to be an over the top celebrity, and kind of it satirizes that absurd lifestyle. Of course, because it is the Dark Lotus beat, it also has the sample of Quincy Jones' Snow Creatures.
Yeah, that song's fun. It's also like Down with the Clown. It's like, what happens if I sell out? You know what I mean? It's the same premise with a bunch of scenarios.
100%. Yeah, good. Yeah,
Yeah.
good point. It kind of has a similar theme, like imagining that situation.
So let's talk about Every Halloween. So did I send you Snax the serial killers, half-breed serial killers EP?
Yes, you did. I got it on my shelf.
And so when Twiztid left House of Crazies the night they came home, which I think I sent you too. I hope you have it. Yeah,
you did. Yes.
That's like that is Half Breed. That's what Half Breed became, and those two records
Right.
are really cool because it's the same rappers just under different names. But there's a song called F Halloween. He's like, I don't know why y'all think Halloween only comes once a year. It's the same melody of the guitar on Every Halloween here. It's the same. And it's like, it came out like kind of, I think right before this. Juggalo should go listen because it's like about every Halloween. It's about what they feel about it. And I wonder if this is a nod to them because they had toured with Saul with House of Crazies, with ROC with House of Crazies. Go and listen to it
Right.
because it's the same da 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 only comes once a year. You could hear that same melody on the guitar and the way they do the chorus on this. Might be on
Right.
purpose, might be an accident. Do you notice that?
No, I'm gonna have to go back and check that out though, because even the similar theme is very interesting.
Use some good info on this, Snax.
So it's such a dope song. Violent J basically is on the whole song, and he's talking about how Halloween is the only day where he doesn't feel like a freak show because everybody dresses up scary and stuff, and it just really plays on that theme throughout the whole song in dope, creative ways. And the booklet talks about how this song was actually, because it was in October, the month right after the horrible tragedy of 9/11, and ICP, felt inspired to kind of do something that would get, Juggalo's minds off it and people in general's minds off of that tragedy. So they actually recorded this song before it was released as the 8th Hallowicked single. They recorded it and sent it out to a bunch of radio stations, many of which, to ICP's surprise, played the song. So, and that is a huge theme in ICP's music, that kind of escapism, 100%. And I think that's a cool origin of this song, and it's just executed so well.
Good looking out on that background. Okay, Mom Song with
Yes.
Rude Boy. This is fun. This is a fun track. This song inspired my line from Never Afraid with Watsky, where I say, "At home you don't put up with that rapper ego trash because to you I'm still Andrew and I'll always treasure that." That's a reference to this.
Totally,
Where Jay
that's
says,
awesome.
"You don't play that Mr. Famous trash."
Right.
Yeah, it's a mom tribute. This is the first time we've heard Rude Boy sing, right? He's had vocal cameos, right?
Yeah, 100%, man, and he kills it. It's such a cool song, like the title says, tribute to Jay and Rude Boy's mom, recorded on a random day on the Amazing Jekyll Brothers tour. I think it was originally played on the Hotline on Mother's Day. I'm not sure if it was this year or a year closer to the Jekyll Brothers. But super cool song, uses the instrumental of Tupac's Changes, which samples The Way It Is by, I got it wrote down here, Bruce Hornsby. That's right, Bruce Hornsby in The Range. Super, super dope song.
I'm going to flip your wig. Like, E40 has a song where he sampled Changes by Bruce Hornsby, and he wrote it independently at the same time Tupac's came out. So there's two versions of the Changes rap, which is interesting.
way.
And they're both Bay Area MCs, and they both worked together, and they released them at different times. So, that's like a interesting Bay Area hip-hop history.
Totally,
knowledge.
yeah, that's super cool. It's always interesting when things like that happen, like, I don't know if it has to do with like a collective conscience or what, but like, when Paul Blart Mall Cop came out, he also had like Observe and Report the exact same time, and it's like,
Or
why
Ants
does that
and Bugs
happen
Life?
sometimes? 100% Ants and Bugs Life. Like, it's so weird when that happens,
Or the new ICP history show by MC Desserts and DJ Sven called Chainsaw Discussion. It just dropped.
Right? Yeah, exactly. What are the chances?
So two things about this. When Violent J was on Howard Stern in 2009 when Bang Pow Boom came out, and Howard Stern's like, "So your mom's like your burden," And Jay's like, this is not my burden. I love her. Howard was using it in a poetic tense of like, she's someone you support who's part of your life and like gives you a mission. There's like two ways to use burden, right? It can either be like something that's hard or something that drives you and inspires you. And Jay's like, she's not my burden. She inspires me. And I thought that was an interesting look into his love for his mom. And also like how Howard used the word poetically, but it's like, people would say that a burden is like the gist of a speech, right? It's the reason why you do music. He's like, no, I love her. So I thought that was tight.
That is dope. And you're right, man. Like Violent J, you know, there's no question he loves his mom. And, you know, his mom ended up being, I'm not sure if you've seen it, Lars. I think we might have talked about it, but his mom was a guest, I believe, on the third late night Funhouse talk show. Back when they were still doing Patreon. His mom was actually a guest with his stepdad, who he just calls dad. And, you know, it was just like a pretty intimate look because ICP do open up to the Juggalos about certain things in their personal life, but a lot of times there's there's certain elements that are very private, and that was like a very intimate look at their relationship. And, you know, Violent J got emotional at one point. He recently talked about that on one of the after shows of a Twitch stream recently about how his mom like was self-conscious about it because she felt like maybe she did like, you know, give back some of that emotion enough, but she just didn't know how to handle it because Violent J was getting so emotional, and she probably wasn't used to being in front of the Juggalos. But Violent J said he's not ashamed of that moment, you know, because it was something that he shared with the Juggalos, and it was genuine, and it really is. It was a very touching moment about how Violent J's mom always supported their dreams, whether they were doing the backyard wrestling stuff. So you hear all that love in this song. It's so dope.
Shout out to moms everywhere.
100%.
That's what's up. The line, she was there when bringing them chairs back. I guess that means that she's like helping him sit down for dinner. I never really understood that rhyme.
So good question, man. They talk about that in the Late Night Funhouse talk show. Violent J's mom used to work at a church, and she would borrow chairs for the wrestling shows that they used to do when they were kids.
My goodness. Glad I asked that. Of all the lines to ask.
100%. That's how involved she was, you know, and how encouraging she was to, you know, ICP's dreams and stuff. And that's so cool.
When I got married, you always do like a dance with your mom or whatever. And I wanted this to be our song. My mom and I, but we decided not to because of the swearing and stuff. And we went with Baby Beluga by Raffi, which was tight.
Dope.
The other song that got nixed was we wanted them to play Teenage Dirtbag when we left, but the church wouldn't let us. So we went with a Rush song. But like, that's the thing. Like sometimes songs that mean something to you, you can't like put in as part of your wedding ceremony, like this song.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. And you might not be able to play it on college radio either. This one would probably pass.
Vanilla Ice is on this song Insane Killers, which was off of Bipolar. And also they did a song with him called Swallow This something on Forgotten Freshness 4, and then Born on Halloween from WTF. So ICP kind of rode for Vanilla Ice. I loved him. At one point, he was almost signed to Psychopathic. Let's briefly talk about that, because that's the whole thing that they're obviously homies, you know?
100%, man. And Vanilla Ice is a down-ass juggalo, no question, dude. And he's the man. As you mentioned, in the late 2000s, early 2010s, it was said that he was going to be he was signed to the label, going to be releasing an album. But then, you know, Vanilla Ice is a busy guy. He had like a TV show. So that hasn't happened yet. But, I mean, Vanilla Ice just played The Last Gathering. There was a Pal Talk with Shaggy and the Creep with Vanilla Ice interviewed. They're down by law. So hopefully we might get that Psychopathic Vanilla Ice album.
He's been around. This song is a reference to Natural Born Killers by Dre and Ice Cube.
Right.
But then there's like, I feel like it's that I'm not effing around. It's like Be Real from Cypress Hill is either on the track or sampled, because that's not on the Dre and Ice Cube song on the chorus.
Yeah, no, there's a couple of like lyrics in the chorus that is, but I don't think that is one of them. And, you know, some of them like when it actually says like mass murder or natural born killers, like that might be from the actual, like a sample from Natural Born Killers by Ice Cube and Dr. Dre. But when I think it's actually Shaggy who says Icky Icky Yaya, which is from Natural Born Killers, but it sounds like a Shaggy. It's like more of like an interpolation, but definitely, you know, influenced by that song heavily, and just a wicked shit banger.
Gitchy Gitchy Ya Ya, that is a reference to the Lady Marmalade song, which Pink and Lil Kim and all them covered. That's what that's a reference to on the original.
Dude, I didn't know that. Okay, word. So
Which
Ice Cube and Dr. Dre were referencing that, and then they got referenced to this song. That's cool. Okay.
And in prepping for this, I was playing this song, you know, today, getting the notes ready. And my 1.5-year-old son, he starts walking around going, Gitchy, Gitchy, ya, ya, Gitchy, Gitchy, ya, ya. Yeah, so that's what's up. What else? Oh, and there's like a line, you know, on this I Stab People Part 2, he's like, misery stab me. Ooh. It's a similar thing. Jay's going around doing violent stuff, and someone's like, oh, you got a Stanley? And he stops killing. It's like a similar premise. His murder spree stopped by mutual respect.
That's right.
Lyrical tropes. Track 14, Confessions, not the R. Kelly version or the Weird Al parody. This is a song of unknown origins, and it came out in like 96. They worked on it. Let's talk about it, Snax. You know a lot.
It's so crazy, man. Like the line notes talk about how they're not even sure where this song really came from. Apparently, Mike E. Clark found it and gave it to, you know, Psychopathic. They used it for this compilation. It wasn't released previously. The liner notes estimate that it was recorded around 1996, and it definitely sounds like that. Like when you think about that, it almost sounds like you know, after the Riddle Box, and you know, probably maybe it was something being worked on for Malenko, or a bit before Malenko. Maybe it was even being worked on for Riddle Box a little bit earlier than 1996. But it's such a dope song for a song that's totally unreleased. It did make it to Pendulum number 8. It was the single for that, but it wasn't on any albums or anything. It's from the perspective of someone giving a confession, you know, and examining why he has done the things he's done. And it's an early example of, you know, that kind of anti-clericalism that you find in ICP's music. You know, ICP, very spiritual, very pro-faith, pro-God, but they oftentimes will question organized religion and religious authority. And I think this song is an early example of that.
Crooked preacher killers, right? If the power's corrupt.
That's right. Exactly.
But they're also ecumenical in that they embrace all faiths, and they're not specifically Christian, which we've talked about a lot. But they talked about what in the audiobook. Jay says they roll with Jesus.
Right.
So
one way or the other, they're definitely pro-faith and friendly to all forms of faith.
And they're also friendly to wrestlers. Now, Vampiro Gets High, track 15. So this ended up on Twiztid's Freak Show, right? Jay coaching Vampiro.
Yeah, well, like more, I think probably from the same session, the Vampiro intro on that song. I think this is like some outtakes from it, and just so funny. You know, got that intro music that's found on Maniac Killer as well. You know, Vampiro is a longtime homie of ICP, and you know, wrestling legend, has also been on the Late Night Funhouse talk show.
And we talked about on the Dark Lotus episode how Vampiro was one of the members potentially of Dark Lotus originally. He talks about that. I am one of the flower. What does he say? I'm one of the members or flowers.
Yeah,
on this,
petals of the lotus.
Petals.
Yeah,
that's what's up.
Super dope.
So, Take Me Home reminds me a lot of I'm Coming Home, and I'm going to talk real quick about how like it's kind of like the intro on Hatchet History, like. They're looking back, right? It's like looking back, reminiscing. And there's a theme here that in I'm Coming Home, he talks about his Volare car, right?
Right.
Home to my 72 Volare, praying it will last. So let me talk to you a little bit about the history of the Volare car and how it represents kind of like the integrity and dream of the Detroit vision. So like this car was designed by Plymouth. It became this very popular car, but it was recalled because it had a lot of safety concerns. And this guy named Lee Iacocca was famous for bailing out the auto industry after the Valaris were returned, and there was all these safety issues. But certain people kept them because it represented like the pride in Detroit. They had the issues fixed, like there were issues with the hoods wouldn't latch or the engines would stall, like a lot of issues. So that's why Jay says, home to my 72 Valari, praying it will last, because those cars had been recalled. So it's like this example of like, even if the world is not feeling these cars there, or even if things aren't perfect, we're going to rep them. And both these songs,
Right.
the Plymouth 72 Valari becomes a metonymy for the home of Detroit. Like, it's not perfect, but it's home. That car acts as this connection between the two. And it's interesting how the Detroit auto industry was saved by this dude who was controversial, Lee Iacocca, who was like the face for American industry. And in a way, that's like the whole Midwestern pride, working class identity of ICP, and how they rep that specific car, which had a safety issue. But like, from the people who, you know, disregard the way they're told to act, what they're told to consume, told to drink the certain soda, I think it's interesting how both songs about their homegrown identity reference the specific piece of American auto industry and how it was saved by like government intervention. I thought that'd be tight to mention. You feel me?
Absolutely, dude. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I got this bandana on for a reason. It's keeping my wig on my dome because it would be flipped otherwise, man. That's very interesting. You know, and yes, you're right. It is a common theme, kind of looking back fondly, you know, when you reach the destination, about how the journey, you know, you're nostalgic for where you came from and the journey to where you are now. And that's what this song, you know, is all about. And it has been a theme in ICP's music multiple times. This one was made just to close out the compilation, specifically produced by Mike P. And that the liner notes actually mentioned that singer is a girl named Amy from the band Blush. You also got Jumpsteady talking on the intro, you know, adding to that powerful nostalgia feeling. Love this song. Another example of a song that is on a B-sides rarity album that actually became a Juggalo classic. I mean, they've used this song to close out concerts, you know what I mean? Juggalos love this song, and you know, it's one of my all-time favorite ICP songs.
Take Me Home was redone for Juggalo Day 2015. Such a classic with the Juggalos. But then we've got a special surprise.
So it's super cool, like you said, that they did this. It's a hidden track, so, you know, Take Me Home, there's a big gap at the end of the song, and then if you know, didn't turn the CD off, you'd come across this song, and it's, you know, Violent J and Jumpsteady with their family. You know, Violent J's mom is rapping on this. Jumpsteady's wife at the time, Nancy. Their daughter, Samantha, who we heard on Jumpsteady's later releases as well. Also a girl named Chris. I don't know who that is, because Violent J on the outro of the song says my brother and my sister. I don't know if he's referring to Jumpsteady and his sister-in-law.
Here she is. While discussing this song during a Patreon exclusive live stream, Jay said, "The girl on there, Chris, nobody knew who that was. That was my girlfriend back then. I met her at an in-store. I went with Chris for 4 years. We had a strange relationship, but we're still good friends. I talked to her 2 days ago." So that's Jay's girlfriend at the time.
Word. Mystery solved. Okay, that makes sense then. Okay, awesome.
And you know, at the end, they're like, it's so funny because they're like, we're family. It's like, yeah, we'll never die. I'll kill you if you get near my family. We're family. And then, right?
Yeah, the juxtaposition for that outro of like, yeah, Violent J being all like, you know, kind of aggressive,
violent and
you know,
scary.
And then we're family. That is funny. I never noticed that juxtaposition.
It's
really
just like very. It's goofy. It's like, but it's like, that song is so fun. Well, let's wrap up this flavor. So, what happened after this? This was the last Forgotten Freshness, right, Snax? They were done after this because it's like 3 is enough, right? Or what's good?
So no, they actually did carry the Forgotten Freshness series on. Went all the way up to 6, which was just released back in 2019. I believe it was part of a VIP package from a 2019 tour exclusive to that, and also sold at, I believe, the 2019 gathering. That was the most recent one. So we've gotten consistent ones so far. You know, it's an iconic series, but I think that because of the internet era, and we've talked about this, we mentioned this in the 1 and 2 episode we did, in the internet age, right? There's not as many rarities because things make their way onto things, and you know, ICP is a band that does singles, all these one-offs that back in the day, a Forgotten Freshness would have been your first time to hear it if you didn't go to this certain show or you didn't have a friend dub the tape for you or something. But now things get posted online right away. If there's a Hallowicked song on a Forgotten Freshness, everybody has heard it already. So, but they still manage, you know, especially with like album outtakes and stuff, because 6 had some serious, you know, curveballs on there, especially.
That's what's up. I got the idea because I do the 21 concepts, 22 concepts, 23 concepts. It's like that's totally based on this. Like put out a series of records of unreleased songs. But at this point, it's like, yeah, I put out so much stuff on Patreon or whatever that it's just a way of like canonizing it in a way that people can access it. It's a cool little compilation. I have memories of listening to it in college because I started college at this time and listening to it a lot and just really enjoying it. Yeah, it holds up. It's a fun compilation. One last thing I want to say is before the Romans appropriated the Western Mediterranean archery technology, there was a weapon they used with a wooden handle and a small blade. It was easy to carry. It was called a hatchet. Let's talk about ICP next time on Hatchet Chat. I'm MC Lars.
I'm MC Snax, y'all. Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.